Every list of the ocean's great killers starts with the shark. Last week, scientists named the largest scorpion that ever lived, and the headlines went straight to its size. They buried the real story. Because long before sharks ruled the ocean, the sea already had a king. It was not a fish. It hunted without a single tooth. It killed with a claw. A sea scorpion, though it was never truly a scorpion at all. And here is the strange part. It ruled an ocean where almost nothing yet had a jaw. It seized its prey with claws. And it left the proof behind. 3 clean holes punched through the armor of a fish, still sitting in the rock today. The Tethys Codex opens on a question. How does an animal with no jaw end up ruling the sea? The answer is a dynasty that ran for 200 million years. Longer than the dinosaurs. Longer than whales have existed. A reign of armored bodies and crushing claws, in an ocean nothing alive today would recognize. We will watch it rise to rule the ancient seas. We will watch how it hunted with no jaw at all. And then we will see one new weapon rewrite the rules of life, and take the throne for good. Not a bigger predator, a jaw. Before we go back, hold one thing in the present. Walk an Atlantic beach in spring, and you may find a horseshoe crab. Armored, slow, older than the trees. It is the closest living cousin of our hunter, the same ancient family, the chelicerates, that still holds the spiders and the scorpions today. The sea scorpion was never a true scorpion. It was something older and far stranger. Travel back to the Ordovician, around 470 million years ago. The continents sit in shapes we would not recognize. The seas are warm and shallow, still buzzing from the Cambrian explosion, the burst of new life that had just filled the water. Trilobites crawl the bottom, the first reefs rise, and the job of apex predator is wide open. Into that opening comes the oldest eurypterid we can name, Pentacopterus decorahensis, cut from rock in Iowa and described in 2015. It was already large. It was already built to hunt, a body that reads like a blueprint for a predator. By the Silurian, their shed shells would pile up in rock from New York to Scotland. This codex calls that long stretch the reign. The family split into 2 ways of living. The Eurypterina became swimmers, paddle-limbed, quick, the open-water hunters. The Styloneurina stayed low and walked the seafloor on long legs. Some were the coyotes of these seas, generalists that ate whatever they caught. Others specialized into something far worse. Hold on to that split. It decides who lives and who dies at the end. Every documentary sells these animals by their size. The biggest is always the headline. That misses what actually made them rulers. In a sea where nothing else had a jaw, the sea scorpion had grasping claws, fast paddles, and sharp forward eyes. It was the only thing in the water built to seize prey and hold it. The real question is not how big it got. It is how a clawed animal held the throne for 200 million years, and what finally took it away. But a claw is not a jaw, and that raises a problem. How do you kill prey when you cannot bite down on it? The eurypterid's answer was a set of tools no fish had. At the front of the head sat 2 chelicerae, grasping arms tipped with pincers. In the big swimming hunters, the pterygotids, those pincers carried teeth and opened wide enough to cage a fish. Behind them ran rows of walking legs, and in the swimmers a pair of flat paddles for speed. Then there were the eyes. Most had wide compound eyes. Pterygotus went further, forward-facing eyes that gave it binocular vision and the depth perception you need for a precise strike. And the 2015 study of Pentacopterus, led by James Lamsdell, described a hunter already built to kill 470 million years ago, spined, forward-reaching limbs to cage prey, the full hunting kit, fully formed at the very start. There is a detail most films skip. The cutting edges of those claws were not just shaped to slice. They may have been reinforced the way some arthropod claws and jaws still are today, hardened at the tip with traces of zinc and manganese, closer to a blade than a shell. And here is the strangest part of all. A eurypterid did not swallow prey whole. It had no jaw to bite with. Instead, it crushed its food between spiny plates at the base of its legs and walked the pieces toward its mouth. Its legs were its jaws. The animal that ruled the sea chewed with the things it walked on. It seized, it pinned, it cut, and for tens of millions of years, nothing else in the water could answer it. And then it got worse, for everything else in the sea. The Silurian was the golden age of the sea scorpions. A major extinction had cleared the competition, and they exploded in number. The pterygotids rose into true apex predators, shell-crushing, fish-slicing hunters at the top of the water. The rock even hands us the crime scene. Paleontologists have found the armored head shield of a jawless fish punched through with clean, paired holes, wounds that match the claws of a sea scorpion. The hunter and the hunted, locked in the same stone. A 2015 study, led by Victoria McCoy, read the eyes and claws of these giant pterygotids together. The big visual hunters, Pterygotus and its kin, paired sharp, high-resolution eyes with crushing claws. That is the build of an active predator, an animal that saw its prey, closed the gap, and seized it before it could turn. Picture the hunt from the prey's side. A jawless fish had no fast escape and no bite to fight back with. It had armor, yet armor stops teeth, not a claw that simply reaches around it and squeezes. The sea scorpion did not need to outbite anything. Nothing else in the sea even had a bite. This was the empire at its height. The swift Eurypterina ran prey down in open water. The long-legged Stylonorina swept the seafloor for anything soft. Eggs, juveniles, molting animals, every stage of every smaller creature was food. The ocean belonged to the claw, and it had belonged to the claw so long it must have looked permanent. Here is the part most documentaries rush past. For 200 million years the claw had no rival. Then the ocean grew a jaw. The jaw came from an unlikely place. The leading idea is that the first jaws grew out of the front gill arches, the bony struts that once held the gills. Over millions of years they hinged. A passive opening for water became an active weapon that could grasp, bite, and crush. The first jawed fish appear by the Middle Silurian, and one armored group, the placoderms, became the eurypterids' new rivals. The placoderms were built to cut. Instead of teeth, many carried sharpened edges of bone, self-sharpening guillotine-like blades that sheared through arthropod shell with an ease the sea had never seen. And the math was merciless. A bigger jaw takes a bigger meal, which grows a bigger body, which grows a bigger jaw. The claw could not run that loop. A pincer that grows too large stops closing with force. The jaw scaled. The claw did not. As the Devonian crisis unfolded and the jawed fish spread, the swimming eurypterids fell. A 2017 study by James Lamsdell and Paul Selden mapped that collapse, the open water hunters losing ground in a sharp evolutionary turn. It is tempting to tell this as a clean duel. Fish grew jaws, sea scorpions died, the end. The honest version is messier. We watch the two trends cross in the rock, but we never see a single fight. The jaw did not hunt the eurypterids down on its own. It changed the whole board, and the clawed hunters were slow to answer. And a weakness sat inside their own bodies. Like every animal with an outside skeleton, a eurypterid had to molt to grow. For hours after shedding its shell, it was soft, slow, and nearly defenseless. A growing eurypterid might molt dozens of times across its life. A weapon you wear on the outside has to come off to grow, and that is the moment it gets you killed. Go back to that crime scene, the jawless fish with the punch-through shield. By the late Devonian, the roles reverse. The hunter becomes the hunted, the swimming eurypterids, and above all their molting, half-grown young, soft and slow for hours at a time, were now easy prey for the new jaws. The animal that once punched holes in armored fish was, at last, the one being hunted. But the dynasty did not fall all at once, and this is where that early split finally pays off. The swimming eurypterina, the open water champions, faded first. The walkers did something else. They retreated, up into rivers, lagoons, and brackish water, places the big marine jaws did not yet rule. And they held on. They never ruled the open sea again. They outlasted their swimming cousins by nearly 100 million years. And they were no longer hunters. The last of the giants, like Hybrotopterus, had become slow sweep feeders, Heavy animals that crawled the riverbeds, stirring up mud to sift out scraps. The deadliest killers of the Silurian had ended as the street sweepers of the rivers. Their diversity, once around 250 species, drained away. The very last of them, a genus called Campylocephalus, was still crawling through Permian rivers more than 200 million years after the first claw closed. Then the planet itself turned on them. Around 252 million years ago, the Siberian eruptions began. The end Permian extinction, the Great Dying, erased the final sea scorpion, along with most life in the sea. The Codex closes the eurypterid entry there, inside the worst extinction the Earth has ever recorded. And yet the line did not vanish completely. Walk that Atlantic beach again. The horseshoe crab turning in the surf is a distant echo of the same body plan. The claw that once ruled the sea, reduced to a survivor in the shallows. 400 million years ago, on a dim seafloor, a claw closed on a jawless fish and left 3 clean holes in its head. That was the start of the reign. The end was the same wound, turned around. For 200 million years a claw ruled the sea, then prey grew a jaw. The jaw that ended the sea scorpions did not stop evolving. Within a few million years, one branch of those armored fish grew into a hunter the size of a small boat. Its head was sheathed in bone plates. It had no teeth at all, only a pair of bony shears that sharpened their own edge every time they closed, snapping shut fast enough to pull water and prey in like a trap. It became the first true monster of the jawed ocean. The age of the claw was over. The age of the jaw had only begun. What does evolution build when it finally hands a predator one of the most powerful bites the sea has ever measured? The Codex has an entry for that too. Tethys Codex.